Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone. I'm Dan Martin. I'm with the New Lenox Police Department. I'm also the chair of our Safe Communities Coalition. We have an accreditation here in New Lenox as a safe community, and that accreditation is awarded through the National Safety Council. And we work on a lot of safety and injury prevention programs here in New Lenox. And this one tonight, the Be Smart program, is brand new. This is the first time that this will be presented. I'll introduce Sharon here in just a second. But before I do so, I want to introduce Mayor Tim Balderman. He brought Safe Communities here to New Lenox back in 2009, and we've went through 2 accreditations. So a lot of the things that we do, it could be suicide prevention, older adult falls, emergency preparedness, all the different things that we do here in the community related to Safe Communities. We can thank the mayor and the board for supporting those programs. We wouldn't have this program here tonight if we didn't have the support of the mayor and the board. So with that, I'll introduce Mayor Tim Balderman.
I apologize, I'm a little hoarse. Thank you. First of all, thank all of you for coming out. I know you're all very busy in your lives. This is an important program, so we appreciate you taking the time to come out here, be an active member of our community. We're certainly appreciative. Dan and the Safe Communities Coalition that all work together do a tremendous job in this town. I say it quite often as the mayor of New Lenox, the reason that we have such a wonderful community is because people do come together and they work well together. And so Dan deserves a lot of credit. I say it at every one of the matter of balance and everything else we do. Yes, the board and I gave the go-ahead for everything to happen, but we really haven't done anything since. We've just enjoyed the fruits of the labor of Dan and all the people that are involved. So thank you, Dan, and to everyone you thank you. Now, I spent 22 years in law enforcement, retired as a police chief. I have seen, I lost a brother to suicide by gun. I have seen a lot of tragedies that have taken place by gun accidents, by suicide, by homicide. I will say this, we have a constitutionally protected right to own firearms. And I support that constitutionally protected right. But I think we not only have a legal right, we have an obligation to know what we're doing if we're going to have firearms in our home. And for our own safety, for the safety of children, for the safety of visitors, and we should have that same expectation if we have children that are going to visit a friend's house, to make sure that those people know what they're doing and that they're protected. So, and as much as I support the Second Amendment, I know that we all need to be responsible gun owners if that's what we're going to do. I have guns in my home, I follow the law, and I make sure that my children, who are now older, most of them, were well aware of gun safety and the importance of it. So I want to thank you again for all being here. I'm excited that this presentation is taking place. Thank you to Be Smart, our partner here. One of our partners with the Safe Communities Coalition, and I'm going to get out of the way and let everyone do their thing. But I personally, not only in my family, but with my friends, have experienced loss through an accident with a firearm, good people that have lost loved ones because of it. That doesn't mean the answer is to get rid of guns. That means the answer is let's be as safe and as smart as we possibly can with our firearms and be good, responsible citizens. So, Dan, thank you again. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for our Be Smart organization. And I hope it's a great interaction here tonight. It's great to see so many young people out here as well. So thank you. Have a great night.
Okay, just a couple housekeeping things. The washrooms are right outside in the rotunda there. You see the exits right here. There's water in the back of the room. Help yourselves. This presentation should be about an hour or so, give or take, how long it takes for questions. So without further ado, again, I want to thank and turn the floor over to Sharon Saliga from the Be Smart program. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. And I would also like to thank you, Dan, for all the effort you put in for advertising and promoting this very important presentation this evening. And secondly, I'd like to thank all of you for coming to this presentation. I do ask that you do look at your cell phones and make sure you have them on silent I'd appreciate that, because nowadays sometimes we don't think about that. And then secondly, if we could just hold all our questions to the very end, I would appreciate that very much. So we're going to begin tonight, and the first story we're going to be talking about is Alexis's story. Alexis was a chubby-cheeked three-year-old toddler that lived in Louisiana with her mom, dad, and 2 younger siblings. In February of 2015, Alexa went with her mom and 2 younger siblings to the grocery store. While her father was home alone, he decided he would clean his guns. Looking up, he noticed he was running late for work, and he rushed out of his house without properly storing his guns. So a little while later, Alexis came back from the grocery store with her mom and her younger siblings, and while her mom was in the kitchen tending to the 2 younger siblings, Alexis toddled off into the living room, picked up one of her dad's loaded, unlocked guns, shot, and killed herself. She would still be here today if proper gun storage precautions had been taken place in her house. So Be Smart. Be Smart was developed by Moms Demand Action so we could start a conversation about kids, guns, and safety with parents and adults who are concerned about this issue. Now, like Mayor Balderman said, we're not talking about the Second Amendment, and I know sometimes when we speak about the gun issue, people have difference of opinions, but I'm not here tonight to talk about gun laws or policies to curb gun violence, although those are important. So what I'd like to do is set politics aside for this evening, and I'd like to agree on 3 things. The first being that we all want our children and our grandchildren to grow up happy and healthy. The second is that we each have the right to decide how best to protect our families and our homes. And that decision may involve whether or not to have a gun in our house. And third, if we can prevent at least 1 injury or death due to firearms, it's our responsibility to do that. So again, why am I here? Well, number 1 is I'm a resident of New Lenox. I've lived here for almost 25 years and joined Moms Demand Action. And when I learned about the Be Smart program, I thought, I love this program. It's a great tool to get education out there to the public. So that's the main reason why I'm here tonight, and I'm also here as a mom and a grandmother. I joined Moms Demand Action shortly after Sandy Hook. I had 2 grandchildren that were in 1st grade when that tragedy took place. So it really hit home to me. So I'm here to present this program to you so we can all be smart together. Now, the headlines sometimes can make us feel helpless, but you're not. We have concrete steps we can take to help make our families, our homes, and our friends safer. American kids are 11 times more likely to die from gun violence than children in other developed countries. Each year, there's about 1,300 children ages 17 and under whose lives are cut short due to gun violence. 400 of those are through suicide. And hopefully we can prevent headlines like these. Boy 13 commits suicide at Michigan school. 2-year-old dies after accidentally shooting self in head. 5-year-old shoots 6-year-old brother while playing with gun. Vigil held for 13-year-old who died from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. And Yuma reeling after accidental death of high school students. And what a lot of people feel is that, oh, this can't happen in my house. This cannot happen in my community, or it doesn't happen in my community. Well, I can tell you when my daughter was a sophomore at Lincoln Way Central back in 2009, this type of incident happened. There were 2 boys and a friend were home at the house. Their parents were out of the house. They were able to gain access to a gun, and the older brother accidentally shot and killed his younger brother. So this does happen here. So we can't go into a false sense of reality that it wouldn't happen in our communities and in our homes. So what you can do to be smart. Moms Demand Action developed the Be Smart framework to help parents and adults protect their children from gun violence with easy, simple to remember behaviors. And if we are all smart together, we can help prevent children's deaths and injuries due to firearms. So the S stands for secure your guns in your homes and vehicles. What do we mean by that? Keep guns loaded, keep guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. That's about the single most important thing we can do to help keep our families, our children safe. Jeremiah's story. Jeremiah was an 11-year-old boy that lived in Michigan. He loved the Detroit Tigers. He loved playing baseball. In November of 2013, he went to go visit his father in Dearborn, Michigan. At his father's house was his father's girlfriend and her 15-year-old son. The 15-year-old boy had taken a gun from a relative's house and brought it to the residence that day. While he was showing the gun to Jeremiah, the gun went off, shot Jeremiah, and 2 days later, he died in the hospital with his parents at his side. 70% of children under the age of 10, we're not even talking teenagers anymore, 10 under know where their parents store their gun. And what's even more frightening is that 36% of these children, so about half, had reported they had handled that gun without their parents' knowledge. So that's why it's very important to keep your guns locked up and unloaded, because we can't keep our curious kids away from every type of danger that's out there. So what we try to do is try to make sure that the guns are not accessible to young children. So M, model responsible behavior. Every law-abiding adult has the right to have a gun within their household. What we ask is, if you're going to take on that responsibility, there are certain questions that should be asked to determine whether you should have that firearm in the house. Now, these questions come from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which represents the gun manufacturers. These don't even come from Moms Demand Action or Be Smart. So are your security concerns consistent with local crime rates? Will other adults join in firearms training? Do risk factors exist? Do all adults in the home support having a gun? And what precautions will you take to safeguard children? Well, we're going to be talking more about what precautions we can take to safeguard children. We will be talking about risk factors, and there were some sheets back there, and you may have picked them up, that have these questions on there. And I just want to make one point is, will other adults join in firearms training? Which is a very important question to ask, because if let's just say there's only one adult who has decided to take the training, and if they happen to be out of the house and something is happening within the house and you need to defend your house and your family, well, if you haven't had proper training, chances are you could end up injuring yourself or some other unintended target. So that's why I really emphasize that one, that all the adults in the house should be taking firearm training if there's going to be one at the house. And once again, this is from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is always keep your gun pointed in a safe direction. Be sure of your target and what's beyond that, because there's been reports of shootings where someone may fire a gun within their house, goes out of their house and goes in their neighbor's and shoots the neighbor's dog, ends up going through a window of a neighbor's house and actually injuring another person in that neighbor's house. Treat every firearm as if it's loaded, and don't rely on your gun's safety. Noah's story. Noah Daigle was a 13-year-old boy who enjoyed hunting with his family. So he knew about firearms, he knew how to handle them. And in December of 2013, he went over to a friend's house, and while he was over there, he was just Skyping with some girls from school, when the friend he was visiting came into the room with one of 4 unsecured guns that were found in that home, pointed it at Noah, and Noah said, "Oh, you won't shoot me." And the boy, not knowing that the safety wasn't on, shot and killed Noah. 1.7 million kids live in homes with guns that are both loaded and unlocked. To me, that's a very scary statistic, but it is a statistic. So that's why we need to make sure that the guns are not loaded and they are locked separately. So the A, ask about unsecured guns in other homes. So for the parents in here, what are the types of questions you may ask when you're sending your children to another person's home as far as safety? Anybody?
Never think of that.
You don't think about that?
Never thought of that.
Never thought about that, right. Right. So sometimes we ask, do you have pets? Do you have a pool? What type of safety precautions do you have? Well, now we have to start asking, do you have a gun in the house? So this is what we want you to do. We want you to make it part of the discussion. As I said, if you're asking about if your child has an allergy, make sure, please don't serve my child this, peanut or whatever. So now we have to start asking, do you have a gun in the house? And one of the things, people may feel a little bit odd talking about that face to face. Use technology. Text them. Private message them on Facebook. Send them an email. Just say, these are my concerns about my child because they're young, they're curious, and hey, if they're going to also be, say, riding a bike, I'll make sure that my child brings over a helmet. And say, do you happen to have a gun in the house? And if so, how is it stored? Volunteer information about your own home. You might even be a gun owner and have guns in your own house. So you might say, well, this is how I secure my guns. And you want to make sure that you talk to them in a way so they don't feel threatened. But if you feel that your security concerns are not being met with how they're storing your guns, maybe you can suggest that the play date happens at your house. Or if it's a nice day, maybe it happens at a park. But it's a very important question to start asking. And also about talking to family and caregivers. Sometimes we don't even think about talking to family members, and this is a little bit different. But when my grandkids started to crawl around, I went out and bought all those electrical outlet protectors so they wouldn't hurt themselves. So as grandparents, sometimes we get a little bit lackadaisical about concerns for safety. Sometimes we leave our pill containers out for the pills we take every day. Well, gosh, if the grandkids are coming over, that needs to go up into a cabinet. The same can be said for our guns. Maybe they just leave their gun in their nightstand. Well, and loaded, and that's it, loaded gun in a nightstand. You never know if your grandchild's going to be coming into your room and start being kind of curious and looking around, and you would hate for that to happen. So this is Mikey's story. Mikey was an 8th grader, very popular boy, good grades, played sports, played video games, and his grandfather lived in their home. One day, Mikey came home from school, was able to access his grandfather's unlocked loaded gun, and killed himself. Now, Mikey's parents felt that Mikey had not shown any risk factors for suicide and wasn't quite sure if he actually meant to commit suicide that day. But this is a very interesting piece from this Dr. David Brent. Is in children under the age of 16, the presence and availability of a gun in the home is a more significant risk factor than psychiatric illness. Probably because suicidal behavior in children and adolescents at this age is often impulsive. And that's exactly what they felt happened with Mikey. It was an impulsive decision, and he killed himself. So the main takeaway from here is the availability of a gun, and that children can be very impulsive at this age. So firearms are the most lethal method for suicide attempts, resulting in death 85% of the time. So, which leads us to the R in Be Smart, which is recognize the risks of teen suicide. And this comes from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is change in mood or behavior, talking about wanting to kill themselves or saying, oh, you'll be better off without me, feeling of hopeless, ashamed, or desperate, an increase in aggression. Now, as I said, I do have some informational sheets back there. Some of you may have picked them up, but these are important warning signs you can look at, and as well on these informational sheets, it can tell you what you can do if you feel that your child is maybe contemplating teen suicide. Missy's story. Missy was a sophomore in high school, attended Heath High School in Paducah, Kentucky in 1997. On a December morning, before school started, she was standing outside talking with some of her friends when a fellow student came to school with a gun and started shooting. Missy was paralyzed from the chest down, and 3 of her friends were killed that day. So this is where T comes in. Tell your peers to be smart. When they asked the boy, who was a freshman, where he had obtained those guns, he said he had taken them from a neighbor's garage that was just wide open. So this neighbor of his had loaded, unlocked guns in his garage that this freshman in high school decided just to take and go to school. So if we tell our peers to be smart, maybe Missy would have been not paralyzed, and maybe her friends would still be alive today if someone had talked to that neighbor and suggested, maybe you ought to move these guns inside of your home, and it's just, instead of just leaving them in the garage. So you want to talk to your friends and family, and you can also volunteer to lead a Be Smart presentation, like I just did this evening. There's training that goes along with it. If this is something that you feel you might want to do, please come talk with me or one of the other ladies that will be at the table back there to what you can do. So let's recap what you can do to be smart, which is secure your guns in your homes and vehicles, model responsible behavior, ask about unsecured guns in other homes, recognize the risks of teen suicide, tell your peers to be smart. So what we're going to do too is I have a, bless you, I have a short survey that if you all would want to fill out, that would be great, because I am giving away 5 free gun locks for those of you who may have a gun in your house and you would like to have a gun lock. That would be great. And now I'll just open it up to questions. Who has questions about what we just talked about?